Greetings, fellow RC enthusiasts, and welcome to the RC Light Systems introductory video. In this video, we're going to be looking at the bootloader. We'll look at what the bootloader is, where you get it from, how you download it to your machine so you can use it, and then walk through using it and looking at configuration and how you update firmware on devices. So let's get started. First of all, let's look at the bootloader itself. The RC Light Systems bootloader is software that runs on a Microsoft Windows PC. It's used for configuring your devices. You can also use it for applying firmware updates to the devices. First of all, we need to go to the RC Light Systems website, so rclightsystems.com. As you get to the website, you'll see we've got these various sections across the top. If you go to support and then downloads, it takes you to the download page on the website. We've got the software here. We've got all of our manuals for the various products that we have underneath. What we want is the bootloader itself. So we're going to click on the bootloader and that will start downloading. Chrome will download that, or whatever browser that you're using. Downloads in progress. It's done. So if we open that up, what we've got now here is let's make that a little bit smaller, is a zip file that's come down from the website with all of the files that are needed for the bootloader in there. We need to copy these onto the local machine. So if we right click on the desktop, we can create a new folder to put it into, and we'll call that RCLS, spell it right, bootloader. So we can open up that empty folder just there. We can now arrange those windows so we can see them both. We can select everything from the zip file, so they're all selected, and just drag them across to that folder there. You'll see that they're copying across. There's quite a few files because there's all the configuration files and the firmware files for all the different products. You only need one bootloader. The same image does all of the products that we do. So you don't need to worry about different copies of the bootloader. It does update over time, and you will need to go and re-download it and overwrite what you've already got to grab an update. It's worth doing that every couple of months to get new firmware releases and so on. They're always provided free. Now, let's get rid of the zip file. So that's gone. This is the local folder just here, and you can see the various files in there. You may have a different view. You may not see some of these. You're possibly hiding extensions, so you'll see RCLS bootloader and probably RCLS bootloader.exe because it will hide the end bits of those two. You want the one with the little aeroplane logo on the left, which will probably just show up as RCLS bootloader. When we run it, it may come up, here we go, and say, I've not seen this one before, I don't know what it is. So if we go to more info, it tells us that it's RCLS bootloader.exe, doesn't know who the publisher is because we don't have a what's called a signing certificate for that, but we can run anyway because we know where it's come from. And here is the bootloader. So we've now got the bootloader on the machine, and this is running. I'll do a later section in this video that shows actually how to use this and go through it, but essentially you pick a dongle on one of the ports that's there. You can open that, and then that starts speaking to the device that's there and access all the features from the bootloader. So now that we've got the bootloader downloaded, we need to look at how we actually use that to access the device, configure the devices, update the firmware, and so on. So starting from the beginning, you'll be seeing RCLS bootloader here with a little aeroplane logo by the side. So we'll double click that to start running, and we're back into the bootloader. So the way the bootloader works, it looks for a USB dongle to connect to the device. We have our own USB dongle. It makes it slightly easier to work with, but you can use any what's called half duplex serial USB dongle. A couple of manufacturers have compatible ones, so if you've got a Jetty USB dongle, you can use that. If you've got a Powerbox USB dongle, you can use that. Those are both basic half duplex dongles, or of course, if you've got the RC Light Systems dongle, you can use that. So connect the dongle to your machine, plug it into one of the USB ports. What we're looking for is a communications port, so we'll drop down this list here. You'll see we've got two in here. It's because I've currently got two different dongles attached, just to do some other demonstrations with that. This is a Powerbox dongle, and this is an RC Light Systems dongle. So we'll go with the RC Light Systems one first. So with the RC Light Systems dongle, we select the port, we plug the dongle cable into the USB port on the device. If you look at the devices, they have one of the ports is labeled USB/RX typically. You plug it into there to the dongle, and then you click open. And once you've done that, it will talk to the device, find out what it is, and start listing all the information about what you've got connected. So we can see here we've got a serial expander connected to the dongle. It's on version 3. It's got V3 hardware support. There's some actual firmware and hardware details down here as to which one specifically it is. And that's now talking to the device. So we can do essentially two different things here. We can configure the device, or we can change the firmware that's on there. Let's look at changing the firmware first. So maybe this has an older version. Actually, we're up to date on the firmware list, but let's imagine that we're at version 2.5 for some reason. We've downloaded this and we want to upgrade to version 3. We pick version 3 and we simply click Update Firmware. It will talk to the device. What you'll notice if you look at the device is the device is now flashing. Modern devices tend to be blue and red or green. We used to be red and green only. We were told by some colorblind users that wasn't the best color choice, so we've changed. So we generally now don't use red and green as the two primary indication colors. It tends to be red and blue on the newer devices. You'll see that flashing. It takes a while to do the update, so we will speed through this to get to the end. So we're approaching the end now. We need to get to block 480. You can see the counter here. So it's taken a minute and a half or so. It's now finished. It's updated the firmware. So the connected device is now at that new firmware version. Or in fact, you can go and place an old version on there if you want to for any particular reason. You don't only have to update. You can drop it down to previous versions. There are very few reasons why you'd want to do that. If you're going to do that, probably talk to us first, but that is possible. The other thing that you can do with the bootloader is you can configure the device, and we have this configure button here. So we can go in, and this shows you all of the configuration options for the device itself. And so we've got a serial expander connected, and that this configuration set here, the primary set that you've got, matches the configuration options you get from the button typically on the device. If you look at the manual for the serial expander, you'll see that you can use the button to program it. But all of those button features, and sometimes some more, are available from the bootloader. So for example, the radio type, it's currently set to Spectrum Smart. It's a serial expander, so we can run JR, XBus, SBus with Futaba or FR Sky, or anything else that generates an SBus output. Spectrum SRXL, so that's like the old X Plus units. Some of the older RXs have an SRXL output. EX bus on Jetty, P2 bus on Powerbox Core, Spectrum Smart, and some D for Graupener radios. So we support all of those different serial protocols. Let's leave it as Spectrum. What you'll notice is some of the elements in here, like this Powerbox mode, is currently grayed out. And that will only become activated if we pick Powerbox. And now the Spectrum ones are grayed out because we're not looking at the Spectrum protocol, and we can select from there how we want that to work. But if we go back to Spectrum Smart, then you see that these two come here. So again, how we deal with the bus, details of what this means are all in the manual, and whether text gen support is enabled. You'd want to turn that off if you also have an AV and ESC on the receiver as well, because they tend to fight. There's a lot of other configuration parts in here for the serial expander. This isn't a tutorial on the serial expander, so we'll leave all that. It's more important to see that you can configure anything that you can do through the button through here. Once you've done this, you've made a change. Let's just change the output rate, so it's now running at 100 Hertz. If we click close, it'll give you some options. So you can save the changes, you can abandon the changes, or you can click cancel, which will return you to this window. You didn't mean to click close in the first place. So we'll save these. If you look at the device, you'll see it flash briefly as the save is made, and that's done. So if we go back in, you'll see it now picks up the 100 Hertz that we set that to there. So that's how you use the bootloader with our dongle. Now, where it gets different is where you use the bootloader with a standard dongle. Our dongle has power switching in it, so it makes it much easier. You connect it all up, then you click open, it then activates the power and then talks to the device. With a normal dongle, so if we pick the Powerbox dongle that I've got connected here, I haven't yet connected the wire on the dongle to the serial expander. I click open first, it now tells us to connect device, and I now plug in that connector to the device, and couldn't get that, so let's try again. There we go, and it's in and working that time. You have to be very quick in plugging in. There is a very brief time window from the device seeing power to the device starting to communicate. That's due to the way actually that the Spectrum Smart Protocol works. They've only got a few milliseconds before we have to activate the bus. So that gives us a very short window there. So you have to be very quick with that plug-in. And it may say, I didn't get it, in which case close, go again and reopen, and you're back in and it's all working as you'd expect. So this is doing exactly the same thing. Everything works in the same way through the Powerbox USB dongle. Could be the Jetty USB dongle or any other half duplex USB dongle. So it'll work with any of those. Once you're finished, you can reboot the device. That only really applies when you're running a standard dongle, so not the RC Light Systems one. With the RC Light Systems dongle, reboot and clicking close, they do exactly the same thing. It drops the power and shuts down the device. Reboot here, the power stays active, but it tells the device to reboot and go into normal operating mode. So that's the only difference there. One of the things that you shouldn't do, if you want to change the configuration, all you need to do is come in here, change the configuration and save it. Saved and now close. That's it. What you shouldn't do is click update firmware. You don't need to reload the firmware to change the configuration. If you do update firmware, there is a chance, depending on the particular version and how it's been configured, that that firmware may overwrite the settings that you've got. So you should always make sure just configure and save and come out, and that's it. Only click the update firmware if you really want to update the firmware. This can change your settings, so just be aware of that. One last example here. I've now got a smart iBEC attached to the wire on the dongle. So if we open that up, just give you another example of configuration. Same idea. We've opened it up. It's read all the information from the device. It tells us it's running 2.4 with hot and F port support. Tells us information about that. We can go to configure. And again, as before, we've got all the configuration information here. So you can see, doesn't matter what device you're looking to configure, whether it's an iBEC, a temperature sensor, TM5, whether it's a serial expander, an ESC telemetry converter, an RPM sensor, the Vario, all the devices all work with the bootloader in exactly the same way. Connect them up, open the port, or if you're using a standard dongle, standard half duplex dongle, open the port and then quickly connect the wire to the device. You'll get it onto the bootloader. From there, you can update firmware or configure the settings. So hopefully that's been useful for everyone. If there are any questions that people have, please let us know. We can make follow-on videos that describe any other items you may wish to see. Thank you.